But before I became the devil incarnate 6 years ago, I mean, I was able to interview everybody, and it was pretty amazing. And that's what made the show successful, is that we had a big show with a big platform with all these great people interviewing.
Well, an example of that is Francis Boyle, because I remember very early on in this, and you were the first one to tell me that the likely source of the pandemic was from the lab, that this was likely man-made. And that was based on two different things. And I want to get into the second one in a little bit. The fact that you read a lot of white papers. And I want to use the interview in part to educate people how the mode and method you use can lead them to come to their own independent conclusions. How do you build up evidentiary foundations for challenging? When people try to wonder, how does Alex Jones get crazy things right decades in advance? It's in part by just reading what the government and the institutional think tanks are actually writing about in other places. And we can talk about the X-Files and some other fun stuff in that subject matter. But about Francis Boyle, you're one of the few people. Here's a well-respected, well-regarded law professor tenured at the University of Illinois who the institutional press won't give any coverage to at all. Helped write the laws governing biological weapons, trying to limit its expansion into the world. One of the most dangerous.
And I've known him 20 years, so I mean, not bragging, but exactly. Hamid Gul, the head of Pakistani intelligence, the real head of the Taliban during the Mujahideen war, I mean, he would only come on my show. And we had I even admitted this later, we even had the CIA contact us and say, how are you talking to Hamid Gul? And I gave him Hamid Gul's number. I said, call his son. And I called the Guls and I said, hey, the CIA is going to call you. I'm not trying to, Hamid Gul respected me. That's how I was able to get him on. He died of cancer a few years out, but I had him on a bunch. So, but yeah, I'm sorry, what was the question you were just saying?
Francis, like an example of you looking to well-respected whistleblowers who have a track record of success and white papers led you to a conclusion they're only now admitting a year later that they were suppressing for a year in big tech, which is that this may be a man-made sourced pandemic. Can you talk about Francis Boyle and why white papers, how you got into that and why you do it?
Well, sure. I mean, Robert, come on. You were saying this at the exact same time as me, so you're just giving me credit here. I have broken a lot of stuff, but the fact that it came out of a lab was not broken by me. The Indians had access to a CRISPR machine. They weren't let in on the club and Lancet. They were writing a study to cover it up at the time, 16 months ago, that you're not supposed to publish the fact that they scanned the virus, and it was 5 viruses cut together with a gain-of-function HIV delivery system spike protein added. And then the Australians scanned it and found the same thing. And then the discoverer of HIV virus, who won the Nobel Prize over in France, the French scientist, I forget his name, he said the same thing. He looked at the scan. And so this was like saying, that Rhode Island's made out of granite, or the Statue of Liberty's in New York. I mean, it's known that it was a manufactured virus in the lab, which they released because they could control it and then scare everybody. And so, yeah, we knew from major white papers, scientific papers, studies written by major groups that was the case. Then the Lancet came out, written by Peter Daszak, who didn't want his name on it. Those emails have come out. The head of the Wuhan lab project to gain a function coronavirus under Chapel Hill and Fauci. And they went and said, oh, you better withdraw that. So they didn't say the paper was wrong. They withdrew it under pressure of billions of dollars being pulled in academic funding to the entire Indian government. And so then I went and saw a bunch of other scientists that had looked at it, and they said, no, it's completely man-made. And they said, they predicted back in February last year, they said, if anybody does a classic vaccine for this was in February and March, if anybody makes a classic vaccine, attenuated virus, and not the other ones they made, the mRNA and others that go after the spike protein, it's going to be a false HIV positive when you take this vaccine, because it's HIV is the shell. And sure enough, remember, the Australian government put out their first vaccine that was a regular vaccine, and people were testing positive for HIV, which then confirmed what the Indians had already said. But it's not like they're confirming some nebulous thing. You can see on these viruses the splices, the P shuttle gene, where they put it in. So I'm no microbiologist, I'm no genetic engineer, but this was known. So most of my job is incredibly simple. But here's another example. This real quick, and I'll shut up. I was the first on air in 1995. By 97, I was on local radio. So all these people were flooding me with stuff, and I was on shortwave, and I'd syndicated the show to a few other stations. And so I had medical journals sent to me, medical journals on biology, medical, all this stuff. And it was like, ethics. Should we be splicing humans and animals like we've done in all these countries. They had studies where they were splicing humans and animals. And should we be letting them gestate inside bovine that are also part cow, part human clones so they won't reject it? So I'm on the air in like 1997 reading scientific reports about human animal clones. This sounds like space, science fiction stuff. Well, notice a month ago, the Congress would not pass a law banning human animal hybrids. Now, why are human animal hybrids so important? Well, a human has rights and even animals have rights. But if it's a new creature that's alien, a splicing, it has no rights.
Well,
and so they said, no, we're not going to have a prohibition on human animal clones. And so there I am telling people 25 years ago this is going on, and now it's all confirmed today.
How do we even get into the splicing? I mean, the human animal hybrids, which you talk about. I mean, what is this for anybody who doesn't know? Because I thought I understood it, but I thought it involved animal parts in humans, like valves and whatnot, and which is where I think some people might lose you. And you're saying gestating cross-human breeds in an animal. It sounds like that's what you're getting at. Whereas it sounds like the more understandable explanation is animal parts in humans for medical purposes, which has been a practice for a little while. Which is where I think.
Well, it's both. It's both. So just type this in. Anybody watching can do this. Let me give the exact headline on my mind. It's human animal hybrids are gestating at labs and farms. It's one or the other. Animal human hybrids are gestating at labs across the U.S., and that's like 5 years old MIT. And so, but see, you can't just grow that heart in a petri dish. They're trying to do that. What they do is that they create an animal human clone that basically does at the embryonic level just look like a bag of a placenta. And then they don't have systems that, these so-called biowombs where you see like a baby goat or a baby sheep and it's in this bag and these vessels come in. Well, there's a animal that's basically in a coma right behind the wall there that's all coming out to. They haven't invented tanks that grow creatures yet. And so using mainly cows, they're able to create a humanoid that's part cow, usually a part of that very cloned cow, so the cow doesn't reject it. And then you can grow up a humanoid larger in utero, to then get larger organs out of. And so that's the industrialization of these labs. And they call them biotanks, but a biotank is a cow. And they don't show the public this because it would freak them out. But it's in all the medical literature.
Yeah, I mean, what's extraordinary, I did a show for just a couple of months down there, and by the time I was through the show, I thought I thought legal work was hard. And there was the amount of research, the amount of work. I mean, you're completely unscripted. There's no teleprompter anywhere near the room. You're talking instantaneously right to the millions of people on a daily basis. You're trying to challenge institutional narratives on a daily basis while being attacked on a daily basis by almost every power that be. But I think what's underestimated when I explain to people what is and why is Alex Jones, I said it's extraordinary amount of reading. You're talking about hundreds of articles a day. You're talking about a combination. It's not just the clickbait. It's not just Twitter. It's not just some small headline. It's detailed articles from a wide range of sources that are international, plus human sources of a wide range of whistleblowers from all around the world that you've developed relationships over the years. In terms of that work ethic, is that something you always had? Is it native curiosity? What is it that keeps you going at that level of energy that's required to do what you do?
Well, I mean, I've always been a little bit of a manic person. So I'm like you and I sit around, smoke cigars, eat a big dinner. We're totally calm for 3 hours. But you've got a lot of energy too, Robert. In your co-host here. I watch the show almost every week. So it's great to be here. So I mean, really, I'm exhausted. And so once I get on the show, I'm a little manic because it's either, pass out on the ground because I'm so tired or be manic about this and drop the information. So it's kind of like when you're in the spotlight, you've always got energy. I mean, that's really where the energy comes from. And there's also the frustration because I know this stuff is real. I mean, I remember this because my ex-wife broke water on my first child, who's almost 19 now, Rex Jones. And I wanted a pizza that night, and I was editing a film on my computer. Then I went to get a local pizza at Conan's Pizza. And I'd been on the air that day covering spider goats. part spider, part goat, so that they create through their udders, through the milk, body armor that can be purified out and is now used in a lot of classified stuff. We're talking about
did John
a
Ronson,
rope
did John Ronson mention this in his book, The Men Who Stare at Goats? This sounds familiar to me.
I actually saw the movie. I didn't read the book, but I know John Ronson. But no. That's Men Who Stare at Goats was a General Stubblebine and the Pentagon at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, trying to use psychic powers to kill goats.
Among other things.
That's another one.
Well, so
among other things, yeah. But the point is, the story's funny because I'm sitting there getting the pizza and a guy pokes me in the back. And he goes, I used to listen to you, but I heard your show today. So I had the CEO of a company that was in like CBS News about the spider goats and how they were creating body armor with it for the Pentagon. And the guy said, "You're a liar. We can't splice spiders with goats and everything." And I just remember. So that was 19 years ago. That was almost 19 years ago. And I mean, it's real. Anybody can look up spider goats. So I'm not the one. Look.
No, I was just going to say this is where, and I'll bring it into the 5G mind control thing. This is where the terminology is that with splicing spider goats, people are envisioning a goat with 8 legs, as opposed to splicing in a certain gene or I'm going to use the wrong term, from a spider into the development of a goat, which is a little easier to visualize and a little less dramatic. And in the same way, like this.
No, you're right. That's what it is. It's a goat. It's a goat that has spider genes that have been spliced into its mammary milk production genes, so that it produces, instead of a regular protein for the babies, it produces the protein of the spider.
Yeah.